Good morning and welcome to the second Pimento Business Development Club of 2024. Now, if you don't already know me, I am Paddy Woods and the director of Pimento Fuse, which is a new business consultancy built to solve and energize agencies' marketing and new business growth. If you haven't been on previous calls, please use the chat box to ask questions, and I'll look to bring you into the call once this presentation is done. But today's session has a slightly different format, and it's a workshop environment where we're really focusing on building a business development plan so that you can effectively strike the right balance around the business you have today and the one you want tomorrow, looking at techniques that will help grow your business and future-proof it. This session is going to be run by Keith Smith, who will be bringing his expertise from learnings he has gathered in the thousands of interviews he has had running his podcast, Fuel. Now, if you don't already know Keith, he's going to do a quick intro to himself, and he's going to take the reins for the next 30 odd minutes, and then we'll open up the floor to do a Q&A. Thank you. Over to you, Keith.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paddy. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. My name is Keith Smith, always has been, and I'm the managing director of The Advertist, which is a new business development platform for creative agencies. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Welcome everybody to The Art of Digging Ditches. I'll say it again. I was going to call it everything you might already know about new business, but have probably already forgotten, but I couldn't get that to fit on a slide. So talking of slides, nothing happens until somebody sells something. Now, this was a quote from Arthur Red Motley, or he was known as Red Motley. He's widely respected as one of the world's greatest salesmen. He was actually the chairman of America's Parade magazine back in the 40s, 50s and 60s, and it was one of the most widely read magazines in the US. Had a circulation of some 32 million. But what made Red remarkable was the fact that he understood that advertising and marketing were major driving forces in the modern economy. So nothing happens until somebody sells something. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I know that. We all know that. But we also always lose sight of that fact as well. And to quote the great philosopher Homer, this one: every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my brain. Sometimes we forget the basics. We're here today because we're interested in the basics of agency growth. Sales, new business, call it what you want. It's all about growth. Now, today I'm going to give you 6 basic, easy to remember ways that you can build a simple new business strategy and business development plan for your agency. Now, you're all experts in your own right, so I'm not going to teach you how to sell. What I am going to teach you is just give you some approaches and ideas that you can then adapt for your own business. And I'm going to try and do it in just a handful of slides. So here's another one. Now, according to a recent report published just last month, over half of SME businesses don't have a viable sales or marketing plan. The Marketing Centre recently surveyed 2,000 SMEs to understand what companies are doing to grow their business in 2024. And the majority of respondents said that their business currently has no way of setting out how they're going to achieve their new business goals. And over half said they've got no documented business plan. And if you think about it, it's not all that surprising, really, because we're kind of always wrapped up in the now, and we very rarely kind of lift our heads up and look forward. And we're too busy working in the business and not on the business. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to you all. So what we try and do at The Advertist is help people look into the future, to turn the potential into reality and to believe. We recently conducted a survey among creative agencies, and we asked them this question. We asked them, what effect would winning more new business have on your agency in the short and long term? And in a few minutes, we're going to go back through some of those answers, because what it demonstrates is that new business means so many different things to so many different people all the time. So who died? Who died and made me responsible? what gives me the right to talk about this subject? And now, as Paddy said on the intro, I've been doing agency growth for about the last 30 years, and I began my career in Fleet Street as part of the PR Week team pre-Haymarket back in the 1980s. And as Paddy also said, I host the new business podcast called Fuel, which is now in its fourth year and some 160 plus episodes. And we've spoken to lots of agency owners, new business people, growth advisors, business gurus and all that. And we've been gathering their advice on how they ensure consistent growth for their business, their agency. So what are you going to get from this? We're going to explore 6 techniques for making sure that your agency's got a simple and effective new business strategy, because these days, when it comes to digital, social, PR, marketing, or advertising agencies, it's not enough just to be creative. We're going to explore techniques from people that I regard as innovators in agency leadership who manage to balance creativity and business. And I'm going to be quoting from some facts, actual research, not an opinion. So I'll give you all links to the resources that I use after, and we're going to follow up with a video link and all this. But first off, let's have some science. You're probably all familiar with the IPA's Bellwether report. It's one of the most comprehensive and reliable regular surveys of people in charge of marketing budgets. And on the Fuel podcast, I recently interviewed Paul Bainsfair, the DG of the IPA, and we discussed his forecast for marketing budgets for 2024. And overall, we're actually going to see a drop in pure advertising spend. But the good news is we're also going to see a rise in overall marketing budgets, which indicates a shift in spend towards emerging channels like influencers, search, content marketing, anything below the line. But those pounds are going to get squeezed for maximum value, which is great news for you because you're some of the best. So you should be doubling down on your new business activity, because more and more companies and brands are going to start shifting their marketing budgets around. Now, for many small businesses, the idea of selling feels deeply uncomfortable. So often we just don't do it, and the result is that the business kind of struggles along or even fails because just not enough people know how great the product is. And there's 2 main sources of new business. You've got referrals and recommendations from existing clients and contacts, which we call business development. And then there are clients and contacts that you haven't met yet and don't know you, and in the trade they like to call those cold leads. So we have business development and new business. Now, there's a balance that you need to strike between these two. Too much of the one on the left, and you've got little control over your company's direction, growth, and team building, and too much of the one on the right, and you're always chasing rainbows and you're not keeping the lights on. So what we're going to try and do is help you address both sides of that growth coin. Now, you're in the creative communications business. It's fun, it's creative, and it's part business and part entertainment. And as you all know, if you can entertain your audience, you're going to be memorable. And even in the sober world of B2B, it's important to remember that creativity and entertainment underpin a lot of the success of the agency. But like that new business coin we just looked at, too much creativity and you neglect the business, too much business and you prevent the creativity from shining through. And these days, CMOs and the C-suite are incredibly risk averse, and they need to know that their marketing budget's in safe hands, which means as well as being in control of the creative aspect of the agency, you've got to know your numbers. Prospects need to know that you're never more than a phone call away from disaster. And it's been on the front page of the Fuel's website for the last 4 years. But Nigel Bogle's quote, "I'm never more than 3 phone calls away from disaster," which I then followed with Mike Tyson's quote that everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Unexpected events are what drives new business these days. And the savvy agency needs to be able to cope with these unexpected events. And if I'm going to stretch that boxing analogy just a little bit further and paraphrase Rocky, an agency needs to be able to take a few punches and still keep moving forwards. Punches like unexpected budget cuts. In 2023, according to Gartner, 71% of CMOs believe they lack the budget needed to execute their marketing strategy. And that's because money's tight. And when money's tight, spend gets focused just on the essentials, what they know works. And just think of your own household spend. Think of all the rising cost of groceries and streaming services. And it's instinctive just to cut back to the basics. And this means that as an agency, you need to provide a safe pair of hands for that money, knowing your subject, know all the bases, and do it well, reliably, on time and on budget. And that's going to keep you the client. So that's what we're all about for this workshop. We're going to develop some techniques and help build new business pipeline that's going to help you all sleep at night. So to the slides and that question. I asked what effect in our market research, what effect would winning some new business have on your agency in the short and long term? So here's some of the responses that we got. Just a handful. Now, at bottom left, I just love the fun response because it's all about mischief and entertainment and exactly the sort of agency that I sort of loved working for. And this is just a sample, but fun fact, 70% of the 300 replies that we got cited team, staff, or company growth. Obviously, because you're all leaders and that's to be expected. But just for now, I want to focus on the one on the top right, which says optimism. This workshop's called The Art of Digging Ditches, and I didn't call it that because I was trying to disparage the new business role. It's quite the opposite, in fact. It's a role I respect. I've managed it for over 35 years now, and my passion is to highlight how vital new business is to any company role. It's the most basic function of a company. You cannot survive without sales. Nothing happens until somebody sells something. New business it's your agency's future. It's your direction, your brand, your HR strategy, your hope. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Sir Anthony Hopkins giving a graduation speech in 2020 to explain exactly what I mean.
To all you people all over the world, wherever you are, I know it's a tough one. I'm an old dude. I've been around for years. I live with optimism. But to all you guys, all you youngsters who feel thwarted and put down and hopeless, believe me one thing. I've read someone, I can't remember whether it was in the Old Testament or I think it was a shaman, maybe Carlos Castaneda, but the shaman said there was a drought. Cattle were dying, people were dying in a desert. And the shaman said, build the ditches, dig the ditches for the rain. And they said, there is no rain. Dig the ditches and the rain will come. Now you non-believers may say, oh, that's nonsense. Well, believe what you want. That's the rational mind. I don't think the rational mind is working too well at the moment. It's the irrational mind, the subconscious. And now I believe that we can condense time. We can pull it to ourselves. It's not about the future. Oh, I'm going to do something next year. It doesn't exist. Tomorrow doesn't exist. The next hour does not exist. It's all potential. But what we can do is drag the time into the present, now, into the solar plexus of our soul. Build the ditches. Whatever you want to do, believe it, believe it, believe it, even if you don't believe. Play the game of belief. Act as if you believe. That is power. That is sheer power. And it will happen, believe you me, from an old fool like me. It's worked in my life, it will work in yours. So never give up. Believe, believe, believe.
I love that. Because as well as all the other wonderful definitions of new business that we just saw up on the post-it notes, I'd also like you to think of new business as hope. Its energy and its motivation. Never underestimate the power of hope when it comes to company morale and future strategy. Anthony Hopkins there brilliantly expressed the idea of bending time, because that's what new business does. It brings the future into the present, the potential of where an agency will be and what work it's going to be doing, as opposed to what work it's doing right now. And from an HR perspective, you're giving your team, present and future, a direction of travel that they can get behind. New business is building ditches. It's dragging time into the present, using the irrational mind to change the rational mind. And it won't happen unless you want it to happen, because nothing happens until somebody sells something. And I've done it myself loads of times. I've said, what's the point of speaking to that person or going to that meeting or, taking that phone call? It's probably just going to be a waste of time, because I was applying the rational mind. I was basically saying, it's not raining, it hasn't rained, so why am I going to dig a ditch? And it's about creating a mindset to make it rain. And you can create the circumstances that allow opportunities to flourish and grow. Successful people, we love to think that they're lucky, but they never seem to be short of new opportunities. And that's because they just keep probing, they keep investigating, nurturing conversations and relationships that deliver opportunity. There's a podcast that I love to listen to called How I Built This, and the host, Guy Raz, asks entrepreneurs to consider whether their success is a result of luck or skill or hard work or all of the above. And across nearly 200 shows, the average answer can be summarized this way: I think we're lucky, but I think what amplifies that luck and creates success is hard work. It's skill, it's resilience, and it's an appetite for risk taking. And in the case of this workshop, risk taking means going all in on new business. It means creating enough heat and light that new possibilities begin to emerge. So let's just look at this in real terms, not just in theory. I'm going to give you 4 examples from the agency world of people who I think practice healthy new business behavior. And the first one is about making new business a regular habit. I've worked for some great agencies in the past, and even their experienced leadership expected new revenue in the first 1 to 2 months. But unless you've already got new business sitting out there, it's going to take around 6 to 9 months before any new business matures. So you have to be realistic with your chances of success. What clients are going to want to work with you? Now, here's the very modest yet incredibly pragmatic Adrian Marr of PR agency Fan Club explaining how he does it.
Discipline is one of the most important things. So personally, I have half a day a week, which probably isn't enough, just blocked out to do lead generation work. And that would be to both cold leads and existing leads as well. But I think the most important thing, which has been pretty transformational for us, is something I've only recently learned, and say I've only really applied in the last month or so, and it's actually made a huge impact, is be realistic about who you want to go after. I think, in my previous lists of targets, dream clients, the big whales, I sat here in a board meeting and we were looking at, Adrian, who are you going after? And we're just reviewing the list. And one of our board advisors said, "You've just been shortlisted for best boutique agency and best low budget campaign. Are these really the right targets for you to be going after?" And you know what? He had a point.
Yeah. The second example is a demonstration of looking for new business that fits the direction of travel of your agency. Taking detours to win new revenue today that's going to take you into the weeds is no real win at all. Niels Leonard of Uncommon explained how he used to view new business and how he's altered his perceptions.
I remember being at Grey, and honestly, I was addicted to winning pitches. I was addicted to just winning, and I had a win-lose draw. Honestly, a hand-drawn. People who know me they'll be the proof to this. I had a win-lose draw thing under my desk with clients' names next to it that we pitched, and I would tick a win every time. I was like, yeah, we won them. Not thinking for a second, of course, about why we'd won them, whether we should have, what sort of work they were going to make with us, what they would say about Grey in the future. And it dawned on me that just trying to win in general is the industry's problem. And we would do anything at Grey to win those clients at that time. And I was like, well, hang on a minute, that's slightly broken, because what happens is you just want to win. And then they go, hey, so we'd like you to do this thing. And you realize it's not the thing you wish you could do every day. Right. So at Uncommon, we set out and we said, this is what we're going to be about. And we were lucky enough to make some of that work. And now everyone we meet, every time we meet anybody, we say, why are you here? And if they say, well, I saw a bit of work of yours, or I saw the B&Q stuff, or I saw that H&M 1 second suit thing, they're on the right track because they know what it is we do. They know what we enjoy making. And so, of course, they come to us and ask for that. When they say they don't know why we're just on a list, we really don't tend to end up working with them. And what I've learned is we don't need to win clients that don't want to make what we make. In fact, it's not just about making great work. It's actually a distraction. If you spend 6 months working with a client you don't like, making work you're not going to respect, you've not only made a load of bad work, you've literally lost 6 months of your opportunity.
I love that one. I think that's it's a great example of picking your clients correctly. Now, the third example is about empowering every employee with the job of helping in the whole new business pursuit, because it actually helps your HR strategy. Liam Keogh, the co-founder of Palm PR, was one of my most surprising guests on the podcast, because while he's brilliantly creative, he showed such a superb grasp of the need to be always on when it comes to new business. And I'm going to follow that with an interview with a clip from Anuska Leon, who's the head of business development at Richmond and Towers. Now, she's a veteran of the new business discipline, and our conversation touched on how the agency transformed when it went 100% employee owned, and everybody had a responsibility for its direction.
The other thing is that we try as much as possible to give people the opportunity to decide the type of work that they do. We have a very grassroots approach to new business. So in most agencies, new business is often the domain of the very, very senior team, but we try very, very hard to get people of all levels, even right down to account executive, in the new business process, because we want people to say, right, my passion is to work with sustainable brands or plant-based brands or really, really big mega brands that I can tell my friends about and they'll be impressed by, whatever it is. And they can then go out and win with the new business team, those types of clients. So essentially they'll build a portfolio of clients that they want to represent themselves.
So we were definitely the first 100% employee-owned PR agency. And we are, I believe, still the only. There are other agencies. I think there's a handful of agencies who have gone part employee-owned, but not 100%. So, I mean, in my view, unless you're 100% employee-owned, does it really mean anything?
So let's just review what we've just been talking about, and let's go through these 6 takeaways that I promised you right at the very start. Number 1, get the balance between the colors and numbers. It's not enough just to be creative. What you need these days is a balance of creativity and good business hygiene. Regular new business prospecting, making sure that you can keep the lights on today, next week, and next year. 2, become an expert in their field. You're going to win new business by demonstrating that you know what you're talking about and that you run a tight ship and that their money is going to be well spent. Number 3, dig the ditches. None of this is going to happen if you don't believe in the new business principle. You have to dig the ditches now. Digging them is going to make it rain. Number 4, schedule your new business activity, like Adrian Marr said. Make time for new business in your week. Get in shape so that the exercise itself doesn't seem like hard work every time you do it. Number 5, new business is your agency's future direction. Base your new business and the creative that supports it on where you want to be in 3 to 5 years' time. Work with clients that are going to help you get there. And number 6, new business is a team sport. You may have some great ideas on the types of accounts that you want to work with, but so have your team. They may have people in their network that can help you do your new business. They don't need to be great salespeople. They just need to help you be a great salesperson. Successful companies are those in alignment with their audience and their team. And nothing happens until somebody sells something. Like I said, I'm going to follow up with an email, and Paddy will, and Teresa will, with links to all the sources that I used. But there's two main important messages of my own that I'd like to leave you with. Firstly, all of those 6 points we just covered can be applied if you use the Advertist as part of your new business prospecting. And if you email me afterwards, we can look at how we can implement it across your agency. We've been going for over 10 years now, and we're incredibly service driven. Secondly, this workshop, webinar, workinar is one of 3 that we've prepared. And in the next one, we're going to go up a gear, and I'll show you how you can implement advanced business development techniques such as referrals, developing the great single idea, repeatable new business strategies, prospect vetting, and aligning your corporate strategy with your business development strategy. So thank you for your time, and also to Paddy, Teresa and the Tomento gang for facilitating this. And just FYI, everyone, while this is going on, the event is being live tweeted by the incomparable Making Sang, whose company FOMO helps generate awareness for live events in real time. So thank you, Making, you're a superstar. And if you want some of what she does, you can ask the Pimento team or me, and we can put you in touch. But let's keep the conversation going. You can call or email me. I'm always here ready to help. But for now, I'm going to throw it back to Teresa and Paddy, and we can take a few questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Keith, thank you very much. I'm just going to start. That was really interesting and useful, so thank you. At the beginning, we talked about sort of actually, in your first slide, I think it was documenting. 54% of businesses don't document their new business plan. Now, it's a common thing, but how would you, we're using what you just, those 6 frameworks, how would you build your framework, and how would you build a written document so that allows the business to think about their new business in a structured way?
Well, I mean, obviously there's no one rule for everybody, but I mean, like I've done with my, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either feel your way through it and just go on gut instinct all the time, but I know a lot of people love to kind of plan ahead. And one of the best ways to do this is to, like when you're planning a road trip in a car, is you know your destination. You've got to think about where you will be, and then work back from that point. So, if you think, okay, well, right now we're working in the food and drink sector, but we really want to get into the educational technology software area, but we've got no real creds to get there. So you look at the educational software credit, and you then start to work back from that point. Look at how you can connect dots that bring you back to where you start from, and then make a plan and get there. Use materials, develop materials that are going to talk to those people and start to generate that. But always, I would say, look forward and get your destination and then work back from it.
Brilliant. And I suppose in terms of, it's getting the structures right and getting the sort of format and getting, so what some of the things that you talked about, it was about sort of actually knowing who you want to target and knowing actually what rather than going for everything, as I think Niels Leonard said, but it's about sort of really being focused and sort of finding out and sort of understanding, becoming an expert in the field. So how can sort of say the Advertist or anything like that, what sort of information can you get that helps you get in that sort of field?
Well, I think it's, again, this is about immersing yourself, because the one thing that, especially that since the pandemic, that we've all learned is that, and as I said in the in the presentation, is that people have become very risk averse. They're less likely to take a chance on somebody, basically to to just suck it and see if it works. I think the point here is to say, okay, well, we understand what this market is all about. We know what it's about, and if we don't know exactly what the problem is, we know the types of challenges that face companies in that area, and these are ways that we've addressed similar problems in similar areas. So give them something that's relatable. There's that old thing that Dave Trott said, which I think is a fantastic quote about how he used to solve all his creative problems by using the phrase about what's in it for me. If you can answer that question from the customer's perspective about what's in it for them, what are they how are they going to benefit rather than what you bring to it? What is it that they are going to get from it? I think that's the best way to sort of go about these things. And it's completely changed the way that I do stuff now, because I just sort of think about, you know, sort of, okay, well, what are they going to want from all this rather than what is it that I bring?
And I'm going to bring David in because he actually made a great point, which is last year was a real challenge for marketing for new business agents and new business, and
Sure.
it was hard to get clients to sort of engage, and lots of agencies looked at sort of, they pivoted to different directions, or they focused and became very specific. And actually, I think, David, if I bring you in, you can just sort of reiterate and just talk a bit more further about your question.
Morning, Keith. Nice to see you.
Hello. Thank you.
And thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, last year, I mean, you can imagine, you know, within Pimento, we talked to a lot of agencies, you know, day in and day out. And I did pick up last year that a lot of agencies have made the decision to niche down, to really try and focus their business rather than try to be sort of jack of all trades, masters of none, being the old phrase that we all used to say. And I think the other thing is also, it's not only just niching down, it's also doing things you want to do and enjoy doing rather than just saying, I'll do it. And I just wondered if you feel that from a business's point of view, that's a good way to start reviewing your proposition. So you're actually going out and making the statement about yourself that you want to really portray. And I think just one other thing that I found from your presentation I thought was really interesting was that subtle difference between business development and new business, by the way. I thought that was a really interesting, subtle balance there. So anyway.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there is always a balance to strike in this, but the one thing that, like you said, you know, that we all learned from the pandemic is that if you've got all your eggs in one basket, you open yourself up to, you're exposing yourself to a lot of risks. So I think it's always handy. I mean, like mine, I mean, you know, my business is a very small business, but I have multiple income streams. So the point is that if one fails, I can always switch over and start prioritizing another one. And this is just, I mean, this is about survival more than anything else. And that, you know, I'm very aware of a couple of agencies that were heavily embedded in the kind of retail sector at the start of the pandemic, and were left high and dry for like 3-4 months. And as an agency, you have to find the money to be able to cope with that, and that's a challenge for anyone. So I think it's always important to look at having you know, 2 or 3 different areas, and that doesn't have to mean you specialize in 3 or 4 different things. It means that you might be able to, like, for example, me, I subcontract podcast work. That's another income stream, right? It's not detracting from what I do, but it allows me to bring my expertise to other companies in terms of developing a podcast for them. And so there are other things that you can do to try and create other baskets for new eggs, if that isn't too much of a mixture of an analogy. But
Brilliant. Thanks, Keith. I'm also going to bring Laura in, which is about sort of looking at your marketing spend and sort of what budget is and what expectations can be. So Laura, over to you.
hello, Laura.
Hi, I've just been kicked out of my meeting room. I was chancing it. So apologies if it's a bit, I feel like it's a bit loud. So we've grown predominantly to date through organic growth. I'm from Tangerine Communications. So we've had a good success rate with new biz, but our issue really is that we're well known by people that know us, but there's just it's just getting known outside of the Northwest, really. Like we work with the likes of Specsavers, Iceland, and just getting that message out there that we work with those brands would be, you know, instrumental in itself. But at the moment, I'm looking at how we make noise around that, where we go. And since taking on role as head of growth, I am bombarded with as you can imagine, like my email inbox is flooded with people trying to sell stuff to me, events, award ceremonies, you name it. So it's, what kind of budget should I be allocating? What kind of what does good ROI look like in terms of working out where we go, what we do? Because I obviously can't do everything, so it'd be just, I kind of could do with like working out what parameters I can should be working within, like what does good look like? Because I
Right.
a gut feel and an idea of what we should be doing, but I have nothing to benchmark it against because we haven't previously had such a solid new biz function within the business.
Yeah, it's a great question, Laura, and I mean I do I completely understand. I think the problem that we're all faced with as well is that when we're all struggling, when everybody's not struggling, but when we're all very focused on growth, everything that comes through, everybody's trying to sell you things that are the panacea for all the problems, and everything's promising a fresh new horizon and growth and everything else like that. I think, like I said, if you look at what CMOs are doing, CMOs are sticking with what they know works, all right, with what they know always works. And I think when it comes to new business, it's very easy to get sucked into, oh, we'll do some, there's a social media marketing agency, or there's a thing using AI, or this is all going to be developed using a screen scraping technology and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of snake oil out there, and I think we're all old enough to be able to understand what works, and it's not the medium, it's the message. And so once you've developed your core kind of creative message about what Tangerine's all about, what, sort of what it is that you're going to be, what the proposition is, then look at, how that manifests as an email. How does that live as an email? What does that look like? And getting that message right. Email is still a hugely effective sales channel for so many people if you get it right. And now that means sometimes not doing cold emails, but maybe approaching people through LinkedIn, through their social media, getting to know them, getting on with them, getting their email address, or basically saying, we've got this coming up, would you be interested in attending? And using basically, like I said before, what's in it for them? What are they going to get out of this? If you can give them something that they will get out of it, then you're not going to be stuck with such a dilemma. It's very easy to have, say, oh, we're going to do 15 different, just do 3 things and do them really well, and just enjoy doing those things that you're confident with.
So that's reassuring, because that's very much what is in the plan at the moment. I guess it would just be good to know, kind of, because I know, Stephen, we had a very brief conversation a few weeks ago about what percentage, of your marketing budget we should be allocating, because there's a couple of, say, for example, events that I definitely think we should be speaking at, with some thought leadership papers that we've got in development at the moment. And we've just had Now Next Y work on our brand proposition, so we have a very strong story to tell, but I just kind of want to work out and make sure we're going to the right things, because the cost of going to speak at events and things is increasing, and we can't do them all. So it's like cherry picking, as you say, like the right ones, 1 or 2, 3 things that we want to do. But obviously, if we can do more, it would just be good to get an idea really of what you think of what other comparable maybe agencies like marketing budgets are, because, as I say, historically it's just been a massive finger in the air for us.
Sorry, Paddy.
Sorry, go on, you go first, Keith. I can give some sort of thoughts as well.
Yeah, well, okay, thank you. I'll hark back to the podcast I did with Paul Bainsfair at the IPA, and talking about how they've developed this thing called the 60-40 rule. And I said in the show that it's incredibly applicable to the new business process as well. The 60-40 rule basically means that what they're recommending, that that CMOs do as with their advertising budget is they spend 40% on activation, or sorry, 60% on activation. So 40% on activation, 60% on brand marketing, brand advertising. And he explains that can go up and down. It's like a graphic equalizer. You can, tweak it and tune it and everything else like that. But it's the same with new business. And as far as those two sides of that coin, the business development and your new business, in that your business development is stuff that's they're warm. They're already people you know. So like you were saying, Laura, about events, if those events are attended by people that you know, right, then that falls into your business development budget, and that is basically that's pushing along a cart that's already in motion. Okay, with your new business, that's the cold stuff. That's where you need to focus a lot more of your effort, because that's harder to build up momentum. So, what I would say is you could apply that 60-40 rule and apply 40% of your budget to business development and 60% to new business, and you gauge the effort accordingly, sort of related to that. But you always bear in mind that where you're going to be, your direction of travel is going to require more effort than the money coming in tomorrow, next week, next month, next year.
Mm-hmm.
Can I jump in there? It's worth, what you're referring to is Les Burnett's study of IPA papers over the last 20 years. And he then redid it for B2B businesses, which is obviously what we are. So the rule is pretty much the same for B2B as it is B2C in terms of balance between brand and activation. But it doesn't really get to the heart of, I think, the question, Laura, which is how much should you be spending? I think the rule of thumb for clients and brands, depending upon where they are in their life cycle, whether they're new to market or they're mature businesses, is somewhere between 5 and 7% of revenue. Now, you could suggest that actually, in the case of new business for an agency, it should be not on total revenue, but it should be on revenue growth. If you've got, from the 1st of January next year, or whenever your financial year starts, which I think is April, if your new business growth target for the year is £1 million worth of revenue, for example, then you should be spending anywhere between £50,000 and £70,000 on activities that are going to drive new business inquiries. Now, in terms of what part of the funnel you focused on, if you think about the advice that we give our clients and our brands, it's looking at the various different aspects of the funnel. What is basically building credibility for you as a brand, and that could be content, that could be PR, that could be events, etc., through to basically bottom end of the funnel, which is more likely to be where you are actively looking to obviously create engagement and drive a brief towards you, and that could be more focused on paid social or PPC or outbound or whatever it happens to be. But the reality is, as Keith was saying, is you need that sort of plan, and you should be having that sort of level of investment. Now, a lot of agencies don't invest anything like that and expect the new business funnel to just keep creating opportunities. And whether that's working with intermediaries, working with other organizations that are going to help stimulate growth. But you need a great data strategy. So I'd start with a conversation with Des. You need a really compelling proposition. You've now got that with the work you've been doing now in XY. You need a really good shop front. And you're obviously looking at the moment with your website and your collateral, your look and feel. And then thereafter, it's about basically having a very dynamic and interesting digital marketing strategy that's going to combine content with outbound and with both social and potentially some PPC. And I think all these things is trial and error. You kind of want to run pilot campaigns against certain demographic audiences you're trying to target. Be really clear, by the way, who you're trying to target in that organization. And see what works for you, and actually just make sure that you've actually got the tools in place on your digital marketing strategy, which will allow you to be able to actually see what's working and what isn't. And it's a lot of things, but you are the CMO of Tangerine. That's kind of, unfortunately, that's part of the gig. And therefore, inevitably, unless you have someone in marketing within the agency who can support you, you need to kind of set that strategy and set the parameters and be clear about the targets you're trying to achieve, and then work back from that. I'm happy to have a chat with you offline about that. I'm sure Keith can probably develop the conversation better than me, but I think that's the nub of it, which is agree on the objective, agree the sorts of businesses you want to work with, agree a budget that actually has some relationship between the target revenue and your ability to be able to actually deliver that. Because without that, then essentially you are putting out your website, running a few events and hoping that new business will come. And it may do, you may get lucky, but I think you need a more holistic strategy.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was going to say the same. I've worked, so Laura, just from agencies normally spend between nothing and about 20%. 20% is high. But what you need to look at as well is what tools you need available to help you do your marketing, and what you need to understand the data that's coming in, and also that sort of strategy and understanding your marketing won't work if you don't know who you're targeting.
Yeah.
And understanding what your ideal customer looks like, what are the pain points, what are that sort of that activity. And as Stephen said, if we could jump on a call and really look at sort of what's going on in your world and sort of bring Pimento Fuse into sort of that conversation, because there's a lot we want to take off. We can have this further conversation offline.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack the call, sorry.
That's fine, no problem at all. But I think it's really important to understand actually sort of making sure your budget, your resource comes into play, and everything what's available to help you deliver to what you need to do, and actually what's achievable. Because what you don't want to do, I'm working with someone at the moment, they only want to work with 2 extra clients a year. So it's actually looking at how you can build your brand awareness to have better conversations with the right client. I'm going to bring Toby in, because Toby, you had a question as well, and then I'm conscious of time as well. Toby.
Yes. Hi. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks very much, Keith. I just had a quick question for you, and I guess it's not really a yes or no or right or wrong, just thinking about the difference between speaking about ourselves and speaking about the client, especially when we have a limited time with them, or they've asked for something very specific in a pitch or proposal. How do you think about how you balance that between wanting to stand out and talk about what you do as an agency versus diving into them as a brand and telling them what you think of what they're doing?
I love this. I think it's a common thing, and it comes back to the whole, death by PowerPoint and that whole topic. I think the thing to bear in mind, Toby, is that anybody that's checking you out, anybody that's seeing you, has already done that investigation. They know who you are. They know what the agency does. They can find out all that information. So basically, all you're doing is reinforcing that by being there, by reflecting the brand, all that kind of stuff. But you are there to solve their problems. There may be the wrong problem, but that's another conversation. But you are there to solve their issues. So they wouldn't have got you in there to sit and listen to you talk about how fantastic the agency is for 20 minutes when, they've already checked that kind of stuff out. So I would focus, I would very much say, here's a brochure, or here's a piece of, one sheet that tells you all about our, the agency, but let's for now sit down and try and sort this problem out, because you've undoubtedly done your own homework. And just adding into that as well, which is on nurturing, so they know you and everything, but as you're nurturing, it's all about sort of giving them value. So it's actually more about them. And I think the general rule of thumb is around 5 bits of value before a sales message. So you're just constantly giving them value, and then it's sort of just nurturing them to give you that contact back, get involved and get engaged with you in different ways. Yeah, it's a good question though. It's a great subject.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Brilliant. I'm conscious that we're coming up to 12 o'clock. If you have any more questions, do ask me by email, but I'm just going to wrap up because we'll let you get back to your day. But Keith, thank you so much for actually really engaging, interesting sort of and useful presentation stroke workshop sort of thing, bringing in actually learnings you've learned from those sort of interviews you've had with the likes of Niels Leonard and etc. But we will be sharing these takeaways with you, and Keith will be the sort of presentation and this sort of format will be shared on YouTube later this week, and we'll also be
the video glitches,
and we'll be sending it by email as well. If you want to get in touch with Keith, please do let me know, and I can make those introductions for you. And also, if you want to discuss any marketing on your business challenge, so Laura, I can follow up with you and talk about sort of introduce you to Pimento Fuse, and drop me an email, and I can sort of have that conversation with you. There's a few sort of house notices I'm just going to take you through. The next face-to-face networking event is on the 21st of March. It's hosted by Circle in London. On Thursday, the 28th of March, we have our first session for the Pimento Young Members Club, which is going to be taking place at Sixes Social Cricket. And this is a club for younger members of your teams or their future leaders, younger entrepreneurs in your teams. That it's a chance to network, share learning, share experiences, but sort of engage amongst your own community and own age group. And then finally, the next BD club is on the 24th of April. And actually, I'm going to be talking to Joe Rogers and Max Gordon, who's a senior client at Tanium. And it's linking into what Keith's been talking about, which is that the sort of business development side of things, which is about building more resilient client relationships to help increase new business growth and help increase sort of client revenue coming through. And you can find the link in the chat, hopefully now, yes, at the bottom. But that's all. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. And just do follow up and keep asking questions, and we'll come back to you. But thanks very much.